So the Bible speaks in different areas about a veil, sort of like a wedding veil, this piece of cloth that obscures a woman's face for her marriage dress, or any kind of veil, any kind of situation where there's something that is semi-transparent, obscuring your viewpoint. And I've got a couple of verses and a couple of examples that I want to talk about because basically, um, there's nothing that exemplifies discernment better than understanding the truth of your relationship with God and His ability as you get closer to this relationship with our Father, that He lifts the veil. He opens your eyes to the reality of the kingdom. That's basically what it is. In our human flesh bodies, we're sort of filtering everything through our flesh and blood brain, from our hearing to our sight, our eyes, everything. There's a filter there where our brain is deciding what is and isn't reality. Just like colors, like this blue, it's not really blue. Everything is actually without color, but there's certain shades, frequencies of light that reflect more than others, and so you perceive the sky as blue, you perceive an apple as red, and your brain chooses those wavelengths to accept. Well, that's what's happening scientifically. And so given wavelength at a given frequency is perceived as red, and another wavelength at a different frequency of light is received as a different color, blue, green, what have you. And all that to say that we are only perceiving a reality that we are allowed to perceive. And I know that's very metaphysical, but it's also very true and scientifically proven. The interesting thing is that the Bible addresses this, and I think it's probably the only religion, major religion, that does, and then lets you know that our Creator relieves us of this. I mean, talk about, again, the name of the channel is discernment. Discernment meaning you want to understand and be able to perceive the real truth. As you walk in your relationship with God, He lifts the veil and you have access to that which most people don't have access to. And it's really fascinating because the ability for regular humans to have access to that which we don't normally have access to has been a motivating factor in so many subjects, so many actions, and aspects of human nature. I mean, that's the whole point. People get into witchcraft and the supernatural and idolize fantasy stories where people are capable of doing amazing things. We have a need to see more than we can see, and we have an interest and a need and a desire to do more than we can do. Yet all of that stuff is fantastical, except when you're talking about people who have a relationship with God. I mean, we love superheroes and all these things, and the only examples, God has examples of people being allowed to survive and do incredible things through their access and relationship with Him. That's the key to discernment, isn't it? And the first thing that generally happens is that they learn to see God better. The veil that exists that blinds us is lifted through our relationship with God. Now I'm going to go first with New Testament, and it's 2 Corinthians 3:16 through 18, and it's just talking about, it's comparing what Moses did, what happened with Moses when he had a relationship with God, and how you can also experience that. Moses, who put a veil over his face so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the end of what was passing away, but their minds were blinded. For until this day, the same veil remains unlifted in the readings of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Christ. But even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. When one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. So turning to the Lord, and of course, if you're doing it sincerely and through faith, you are enlightened. You're receiving greater sight. You're given access to that which you don't normally have. Even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from the glory to the glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. So that's a lot to say, that when you, with sincerity, and I'm talking about you have a relationship with your Creator, you've accepted Christ and his sacrifice on the cross, you are a Christian, you understand who Jesus is, and you're seeking his face, he can reveal his face to you, and the veil, that fogginess, that earthly perception of reality is lifted. And you know, people talk about, oh, I have second sight, and people like to claim and explore, again, things that, you know, the movie The Sixth Sense is another example, Jedi and Star Wars movies and all sorts of things. People want to have the ability to see the unseen, what is normally unseen. And that's exactly what this is talking about. So if you want to experience what most people don't experience, you want to see what's mostly unseen, pray and develop a relationship with the Creator God, and ask him, Lord, let me see your face. And on an emotional level, it's pretty exciting, because I can guarantee you these are one of those things that are affected by, you know, your heart. I mean, I don't know what God will do with you in a relationship with you, but seek his face. That's my point. Seek the face of God, and you'll be surprised, mentally, physically, and emotionally, at the response that you get. I guarantee it. I don't know who needs to see this, which is something I'm supposed to say at the beginning of these, but I felt compelled to deal with this because this is something that is spoken about in both the Old Testament and the New, and people, again, as I've said a million times, we want things to be revealed to us which are normally unseen, and that's an offering, you know, that's something that's on the table, the face of God. Moses, to reference that in Exodus, was on the mountain, called to the mountain by God to commune with God, and famously Moses asked to see the actual physicality of God, and God refused, said, no, you know, my glory will destroy you, basically. You know, you can't handle the truth, that kind of thing. My glory, you know, it's not something you can survive, which we all sort of makes sense. So God placed Moses in the crevice of a rock. You know, he put Moses in a place where he had to be semi-hidden. So like this is, you know, mountain and everything, and walked by and said, you can see some of my glory as I pass by, you know, by you, and you know, after I've walked by, you will have access to a little bit of my glory. And it was still such a vivid, mental, physical, and supernatural experience that Moses's head was physically glowing. And when he came down from the mountain, he had to have a covering on his head in which the light would shine through some of the holes. It's a really fascinating story, and it deserves its own episode of discernment, and it deserves its own study, because the verbiage for that was the source of a lot of works of art in antiquity, and you know, in the medieval period and the Renaissance and things like that. And there was a period in time where, because of how these streams of light appeared through his covered head, and even after they took it off, he's literally glowing, and there's streams of light coming out of his head because of his exposure to the Spirit of God. Well, the word streams of light, sort of like that, is the same word that they had used for the horns coming out of a ram. And the word in the translation, it was a similar, if not the same word. And so there are depictions of Moses by the great Renaissance artists where, instead of Moses with streams of light, which would be very difficult to do in a three-dimensional sculpture, coming out of his head, I mean, they would have found a way. Instead of their streams of light coming out of the sculpture of Moses's head, they are horns. And so people who don't know anything about art, and of course, you know, I lived in Rome and was a tour guide there for a few years. People who don't know anything about art would see this statue of an old man with horns coming out of his head and thought, well, it must be the devil. And it was anything but, it was Moses. All that to say, everything is about context. You have to know, understand context to be able to speak on things, don't you? And I love that artistic story, and I love the fact that it is based on an Exodus event, and God actually revealing himself in part to Moses, and all that, how you go from Moses' request to be unveiled in the presence of God, God's response only partially unveiled him, the streams of light coming out of Moses' head, and then thousands of years later, a sculpture by a Renaissance master that instead has Moses with horns. You can't make this stuff up. This is why, of course, the Bible is what it is. All right, so 2 Corinthians, and I want to also talk about 2 Kings 6:7, Isaiah, because this is another example of the Bible talking about veils and the fact that there's alternate realities that we have access to: the earth, physical reality, the flesh, and what we're all used to, the world we're born into, and then the spiritual reality. So I'm looking at 2 Kings 2:10. And this is also one of my favorite biblical stories. Let's get to it. You love it when you should have marked these out earlier, but you know, that's why you know this is real, because I'm here in real time. Okay, the second book of the Kings, and it is Kings 6:17, and it deals with Elijah. This is where they are surrounded by an enemy army. These prophets are surrounded by an enemy army. And all right. Let's see, 6:17. Oh, 6:17. Do not fear, for those of who are with us are more than those who are with them. So again, what's going on is Elijah and another person are encamped. They're in a combat situation, and they are surrounded by an enemy army. That's what's going on. Surely he is in Dothan. Therefore he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And when the servant of the man of God arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, Alas, my master, what shall we do? So he answered, Isaiah, do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. So it appears physically that they're outnumbered, but what he's about to reveal is that they're actually not. And Elijah prayed and said, Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. Then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So when the Syrians came down to him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, Strike these people, I pray, with blindness. And he struck them with blindness, and according to the word of Elisha. Now Elisha said to them, This is not the way, nor is it the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Samaria. So it was when they come to Samaria, and Elijah said, Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and that they were inside Samaria. Okay. And of course that passes quickly. But what's going on is they are being invaded by the Samaritans, and as I said, they are surrounded by an army that they feel is outnumbered them. But when they are, when the Lord prays, Elijah prays that the Lord lift the veil, it's revealed that they're actually not outnumbered at all, and it said they're chariots of fire, which is, of course, a famous phrase from the Old Testament. There's so much in culture that's taken from the Old Testament, and I'm sorry if I read that too quickly, but the point is the Bible speaks of the reality that exists and our perception of reality that is of our flesh and earthly. And it's a fascinating thing, and I know that there's people who will eventually see this video, if they get through this far through it, because I'm at 14 minutes, who have dabbled in all sorts of supernatural things simply out of curiosity, whether it's Ouija boards or whatever it is. I'm not even going to go into the details. We seek that which normally cannot be seen. It's just part of our curious human nature. Sometimes we're doing it for nefarious reasons. Sometimes we're doing it out of curiosity. Sometimes we're doing it because we want something. We want success, love, money, all the same old stuff. Seek the face of God. Seek a relationship with your Creator God, and Allow him to, through your growing relationship, open your eyes and lift the veil and reveal through his glory things that are unseen. I guarantee you, this will work. You will see things. You will develop a relationship, and discernment will come to you. This is a no-fail. As long as you are sincere and pure in faith, and you are actually seeking a relationship with God, he will lift the veil. You will experience something, guaranteed. All right, this video is way too long, but it's worth it. All right, the next time on Discernment. Peace.